Carol Kaye has been a big influence for me. I studied her books as a bass student when I was starting to pick up bass. I heard of her, and so I dig out and I found out who she was, and it's just an amazing experience to have this amazing, not only bass player, but guitar player and complete musician. Like, she knows inside out the music world, and I was lucky enough to take a lesson with her, and it was just one of the best experiences of my life. She's a very, very talented musician.
What's your thoughts on Carol Kaye?
Well, first of all, she's so hot. Like, the hottest woman in the music industry. I've asked her to marry her when I met her. She's one of the most influential string players of our generation, and I love you. And I give you a big smooch kiss on the cheek. I love you, Carol. Bye.
You may not know who Carol Kaye is. She is not like Michael Jackson, or, you know, she's not in the front.
It's not mainstream, exactly.
Yeah, she's not mainstream. And there's so many people like that as musicians who are not mainstream, but who are so important. It took me a while before I even knew who she was and how impactful she had been, you know, to the bass guitar, to the industry. So, I mean, I have nothing but the utmost respect and adoration, and like, I couldn't even imagine being in the same room with her. I'd be so nervous and like, you know. So much music, so much knowledge, so much experience. She's somebody that we all look up to, like, wow, she is the, you know, she's the first one. She broke down a lot of doors and a lot of barriers.
Is there anything you want us to ask her? And if you can't think of anything, okay.
We're going to her house on Friday.
You're going to her house?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Do you want to come?
I do. Yes. Man, I would just like to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing the work. Because it is a lot of work.
We're with the legendary Carol Kaye, who's played on more hits than I think any of us have tried to calculate over the past couple of months.
The mother of bass guitar.
Yeah, well, they say that, you know, but I'm the only mother I am is two of my three kids, really. You know, so yeah, they were good kids. I was very lucky to have really good kids. You know, so yeah, but it was a lot of work back then. There was a lot of music back then. There were a lot of good people who could sing well, you know, that kind of thing. They didn't need the auto-tune, and then you have players who felt grateful enough to play and to make money at the same time. That was something that we were all grateful for, you know. And like I said, I was a bebop player at first. That kind of stuff, you know. From that into that kind of stuff. Let me turn down a little bit, you know. So it was that kind of feeling, you know, on the records of Sam Cooke. You heard that, you know, and so forth, you know, and La Bamba. On the echo. You know, the feeling there. When we all played, it was a good feeling because the producers of that time were jazz fans. They were older people, and in fact, the fellow that came in the jazz club to get me to play on the Sam Cooke stuff was Bumps Blackwell. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was a jazz vibes player, you know. And he loved jazz musicians because he knew that he could get them to come in the studio and invent their lines and play great, you know. So they would purposely go out to jazz clubs in the late 50s to get the jazz musicians to come and play the rock lines and invent the rock lines, because they didn't write the music back then, you know. You just heard the singer sing and play the tune, and we'd write out the chords real fast and then invent lines, you know, because we heard what needed to be done. That was it.
You've worked with so many people over the years. One thing that we've been listening to the last couple of days is a lot of your work with Joe Pass.
Oh, with Joe Pass.
What was it like working with Joe?
Joe was one of the regular jazz guys. Half the jazz people got into drugs, the other half didn't, you know. So Joe had gotten into drugs just like Hampton Hawes and Art Pepper and those people, and spent time in jail. But he was a great player. He really was a great player. So when he got out of jail the last time, he cleaned up. You know, he went to cinema and cleaned up and started playing again. But by that time, rock and roll had taken over all the jazz clubs just about. There were a few live yet, but you know, so he couldn't find work anywhere, and that's when we kind of hooked up on the record date one time in the late '60s. So he and I and Paul Humphrey, the drummer, and then Wilton Felder was on sax on the record date, and all felt good to play with him. You know, so yeah. So I've known Joe Pass since about 1960 because I heard him play then, and we met and kind of hung out together a little bit. And he was a monster then, but he changed his playing when he had a chance to shake the drug thing and to start his life all over again. He changed his playing, and he kept saying triads. It's triads, Carol. It's chord notes, but it's triads. And I didn't know what he meant at the time, you know, but I do know that the players back in the 50s learned to play from chordal notes, you know, and we learned, my first lesson was G for 2 and 2 for a T. First lesson on guitar, 13. Just that ML special. That kind of stuff. And I learned that this bridge thing is a diminished chord. So you learn to function or but I never knew the open string chords until later on when I did do studio work. I never played open string chords at all. It was all bebop chords and bebop lines, you know. And for about 4 months of lessons, I worked for him. I was kind of poor, and he hired me to work for him. The teacher did at the age of 14. You know, I worked about 3-4 months, and then he got me into some jazz gigs. He recommended me for some jazz gigs. I started working at 14. I had my hair up and all that stuff, looked over, you know. So, but you grew up fast back then because everybody grew up during the really bad times. So you grew up fast, you learned how to take care of yourself and work hard.
Yeah, straight in the deep end at a very young age.
Yeah, but everybody was poor back then. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, the music business was not, there's a lot of musicians, a lot of music, a lot of stuff happened, but nobody really made a lot of money back then until studio work. Studio work was all of a sudden, I had a day job too. I'd play work during the daytime. I was a head technical typist, and I'd type real fast and everything. And I was cleared for top secret work too, because it was all top secret. Then I go to play at the bebop jazz clubs where they're doing drugs and all this stuff.
One extreme to the other.
That one extreme to the other, you know. But I didn't talk about either side of it, you know. So I was cool, you know. So, you know, I stayed away from the back room during the break because they were doing their, you know, stuff back there, and I just hung out outside at the bar drinking an orange juice or something, you know. So you learn to cope with all of that. And, a lot of times in the jazz clubs in South LA, this is after the Central Avenue stuff. South LA, they had jazz clubs all over, and it was bebop, and it was hot. It wasn't that cool jazz. See, the West Coast gets the wrong thing about it's cool jazz. Part of it was, yeah, but most of it was hot bebop jazz. You're talking about the real players that came. The sax players from New York loved to come out here and play, you know, because it was hot. I mean, and the girls were pretty. So they loved the girls. California girls and the weather and then hot jazz too, you know, and being appreciated, you know. Because the audiences out here were the aerospace people, and any given night of the week, it was all bebop with all the clubs, you know. It was all bebop jazz, and it was the pop music of LA was packed to the rafters with aerospace fans that came up and had a drink and listened to some music. It was wonderful, but in South LA, they had some luxurious clubs where you kind of knew that it was probably mob money or something that built these clubs, but they were rich clubs. Everybody came in suits and ties to hear jazz. It was that special to everybody down there. And you go play, and if they don't like you, they will let you know. So it was a good place to hone your craft, you know. And then if you didn't play well, too, I saw this a few times. I mean, I never got that look, but there's something that the musicians would give. It was a certain look, you know, like get off the stage and you're gonna die, you know, that kind of thing.
You just know.
So you just know, you know, because once in a while there'd be a player sitting in and he wasn't cutting it. It's like, hey, man, you know, they'll smile, but they'll also let you know get off the stage real fast, you know. So it was that easy, you know, that all you had to do was play good, and you were called for work and all that. You didn't make much money in the clubs then either, but you got a lot of gigs on the side, about bar mitzvahs and weddings and parties. That was all jazz back then. You played with the guys, same guys on stage you did in the private gigs, you know, that kind of thing.
We briefly mentioned, speaking of California girls, we jump forward a bit to your work with the Beach Boys. That must have been some leap from...
Yeah, well, it was gradual. You know, when you're working with Sam Cooke, it's still jazz guys.
Yeah.
You know, and Sammy could sing. Then I went to Richie Valens and a lot of those early rock. I'm still hearing some of those early records that I'm playing guitar on. You know, riffs and this kind of stuff, you know. Something happened to the sound. Oh, man.
Okay.
I think it came out here. Just a minute.
I think our little companion here.
Yeah, something like that, you know, just little riff or little things I'm playing on the guitar. I hear you. I said, yeah, that's right. Or of course, it was loud with a lot of highs, like this sound. Is there, and people love the feeling. Most of the players in the studios were jazz musicians, so the feel was there because you made sure that your time sense was perfect. You can't play this kind of music like you can't play those tempos with bad time. Yeah. Everybody has to be groovy, you know, together. So your sense of time was there. That's why the feeling of the early records was so hot, because we grew. And then you had some of the natural rock talents, you know, like the Glenn Campbell, Leon Russell, and all those people, you know, and they could groove. So I mean, so it was a big group, and we liked each other. We liked the music. It was different. It was easy, you know. You know, when you're playing simple music and making a groove, it's fun. You know, it doesn't matter. And the challenge was coming up with simple lines to make that record happen. That was fun, see. But middle 60s, it started changing. It got to be more work, and it was groups then, you know, that, yeah, it's okay, Hondells and like that. That was all right. It just got a little boring after a while then, you know, just, that surf music especially wasn't that hot.
Creatively.
Yeah, so and when the bass player didn't show up in '63, because I had them playing the Dano bass guitar, they put when the bass player didn't show up at Capitol, they put a bass in my lap, and they said, okay, play it. So I got to play, instead of going, that kind of thing. I played what I heard. So that kind of stuff, you know. So that would make the record pop a little bit more, see.
Do you remember who the bass player was that didn't show up?
No, don't remember the tune. I don't even remember what part of the year it was, you know, but it was in '63, you know. So then they put the bass in my lap. See, I had been playing lines like this, but with the high end on the Dano, which is a quick. I'm in with the end crowd. Keeping it simple. Yeah. So I got the feeling of the bass on that, and I guess that's why they had me play the bass. Mm-hmm. But the Dano is not a Fender bass, so that somebody had a Fender bass, I played Fender bass. It was a lot of fun then. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, I saw the future of the bass. You know, I knew that bass lines were critical to the types of music that we were recording. But it needed to be played better. You know, instead of going, instead of two notes, you need to float around
Well,
a
that's
little
where all
bit.
your theory comes into practice, and you know where
From
to go.
playing guitar,
Yeah.
I kept hearing there's something that needs to be happening on the bottom end. You know, you just heard that. And so I played extra lines on the guitar to try to make up for it. You know, that's what you do in real jazz, right? You're playing jazz is intimate. Somebody plays something, you answer it.
Call
That
and
kind of thing.
response.
Well, they call it call and response. I call it statement and answer. But anyway, it's just, it's a network like this where the drummer plays something and gives you ideas and you go along with it. But rock isn't that complex, but I know there's a lot of that going on in that too. But jazz, you breathe in and somebody breathes out for you. It's that close, see? So that's the synergy that was happening with the record they'd set. And it was real close, and the groove and everything. So it was kind of nice to work with everybody who could play too. You
And
know?
it goes to show everyone's really listening to each other, as you say, like statement and response.
Yeah, you're there because when you're making money for your family, you're grateful that you don't have to go out and go on tours. We all did that. We all toured with bands and groups and stuff like that. And it's so great to be home with your kids, you know, that kind of thing. So it was just a few dates a week at first, and then the business really grew up fast. All of a sudden, people from New York were moving out here to do studio work. So we kind of took the capital of music away from New York then, and the capital was Los Angeles. Yeah. So that's what happened there, because we kept putting out really good products, and it was kind of fun at first, and the money was horrendous. Now, we're talking about 1960s. I was doing my day gig, so I could quit my day job. I thought, okay, I can do studio work, quit my day job, and still do jazz. But we saw the jazz clubs closing down and then reopening as rock clubs, so the handwriting was on the wall. You know, so that's what happened.
You mentioned when you picked up the bass, because the person couldn't make it. When you picked up the bass at first, was it very familiar straight away to you? Did you feel as if this is something that I can get into?
Yeah, it didn't feel strange at all. It felt, I knew what needed to be played on the bass. Like when we got on that thing like, and the beat goes on, you know, bass players doing it, and the beat goes on. I was playing the damn on this. Now, Sonny and Cher, you know, Sonny couldn't sing. He knew it. He was great in the booth, but he couldn't sing. So add to that the tune of one chord, and nobody was playing it. Leon Russell was trying something, others were trying something. On the demo, the third line I came up with it, and the beat goes on. So it was easy to see the difference that bass line can make in tunes, you know. So I started playing more notes and stuff like that, runs, you know, in the right spot or something. And everybody said, "Yeah, Carol, wow," you know. Or the funk was. You know, that kind of stuff. But you know what? If you ever played Latin American music, you know where that came from. You don't think of where it comes from at all. You just play what is needed. But have you heard? So you put a halftime beat to that, and it's funk. Bass line. That kind of stuff. See, on the bass, and it's Latin funk it's Latin when you're doing it that way. Now you have a rolling type of bass line that we used on some of the Motown stuff. A lot of people don't want you to know that some of the Motown was cut out here, especially by a white woman with blonde. The image is so important, you know. But the art of creating bass lines is very important for the kind of tune that it is too. It has to be the right song, the right style, and the way that the singer is singing. You don't rush in to fill every gap or anything. You support everybody, and it's important to have the right style for it, for the bass line. You don't want to get in the way of the arrangement too. See. Increasingly, arrangers learn how to arrange rock and roll and funk and soul and all that kind of stuff. They borrow some of our licks. It wasn't rare for me to get on a bass gig, a bass recording day, and reading some of my own licks 2 or 3 weeks after I recorded it for somebody else. They would write it down and write them in the arrangement then, that kind of thing. But for the most part, no matter how much they arrange, they write a simple bass part and say, Carol, add to it. And that's what I did. I'd add to the arrangements. Other people have worked for Quincy Jones. I'm not the only bass player used. But most of the time, I did do all of his movies in the 60s. And he used to say, Carol, I'm not doing a film without you. I said, why? I want to know what he was thinking about. He said because your sound gets on the film better than anybody's, and half the time he wanted me to make up some parts too, which is good. I have fun. But it's the pick sound. Now you hear me playing. The attack of the pick, no matter if you put on a lot of low end, see, that kind of thing, you don't hear the pick that much, but the attack of the pick, no matter if you put on low end or high end or the Mission Impossible that kind of thing, it's got balls to it. It's got the low end bass part as well as the attack. But then some of the dates, like the Beach Boys dates, I had to add on a lot of high end too with it, see, because Brian wanted both the bottom and the top end. And most of the time, he did have a string bass player play with me, but he had me boosted up more in volume the string bass. So some of the time, Loud Red on string bass, he says, "You can't hear me. I'm just here for color," or something like that, but he was in there. But there was one tune, God only knows, where you hear the string bass a little bit more than the Fender bass, And at the time of the Beach Boys, Brian brought in the music. That's the only time I didn't have to invent bass lines, was with Brian Wilson. He would bring in the music, and he was some darn good bass lines. I had no idea that he was a bass player. I didn't know that. I thought he just wrote everything on the piano, But he had an ear that heard music in a different way than most people. See? And he was very good, and he was great fun to work for. He had a sly sense of humor. He said, "Hey, go do this," and or something like that, and then kind of smile a little bit, so we knew it was a joke.
It must have been fun when you do the likes of the classic Good Vibrations. It's such a clever bass line.
Well, that's his bass line.
Yeah.
See, he wrote this. This is not a regular bass line. I played it this way for the timbre of the strings, you know. Because if you did this, see the different timbre of the string. Same timbre, see. Keeping the timbre the same, because the timbre is so different between each string. But this line, this is not a jazz line, but it's a jazz feel, though. So it's got a walking sound to it. And the California Girls, the fingering it has to be this way. You use the thumb as a pivot. See, the thumb doesn't move, but you move it around like this. You never want to play like that. You put a lot of tension in it. And it goes. He wrote this, you know. So and. Still jazz feel. But it sounds like the Sons of the Pioneers of that. So it sounds country. So, but Brian got his ideas all over from all over.
We didn't get a chance to talk about your solo records, some of the songs that you did. I think actually we mentioned earlier, Joe Pass was involved in that, because that record is fantastic. What are your memories of that?
Oh, but picking up on the Easter, what happened there, Ray Brown and I were doing a lot of film calls together. So we started playing two basses together. You know, hey, let's go in the studio and cut some of this stuff. So I forget what I did even now. I have to listen to the record. I said, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. You know, but I'm playing something funky like. And it's going or something like that on the bass, you know. That's just the regular way of playing for me, you know. It's I did that with Joe Pass too, you know. So it was kind of fun because Joe didn't want to do that kind of style music at first. He never played that except straight ahead jazz, you know. So we get in the studio to do an educational thing. I said, hey Joe, let's do an educational thing. I had put out his books, and his books were making a ton of money. So he said, oh, okay, let's do that. You know, so we started to jam some boogaloo, and we jammed some jazz and bossa nova and stuff like that. And the three of us sounded so good together. It was Paul Humphrey on drums, and Paul is a darn good, fine jazz player who got in the studios like the rest of us, and we were doing all these studio dates together and getting bored by that time too. It was 1971. So we started playing together in the studio. It felt so good to do that, you know. So I produced an album on Joe Pass, but I had Ray Brown on most of it. But we did some things too, just the three of us, and it sounded real good. We did a lot of concerts and stuff together. Pretty soon, Joe Pass was making so much money, he couldn't believe it, you know. And we were playing good, and he loved to play in front of the college kids too. The kids just loved him. You know? Oh yeah, we never knew what we were going to play. We just jumped on stage and played it, you know, because we never rehearsed. It was like jazz. You just get on stage and impromptu play, you know. So that's what we did. So I played some funk with him and some jazz and stuff like that. I did the same thing with Hampton Hawes. One of the greatest piano players in the world was Hampton Hawes, you know. So yeah, did things like just a jam thing, and Hampton would you know, that kind of thing. So he played his jazz on top of that, and it was like soul jazz and stuff like that. other people like Herbie Hancock was playing funky jazz and stuff like that. Because jazz was dead, see, in the 60s, rock killed it. But it came back as freedom jazz with Ornette Coleman. Now, I played with Ornette because Ornette sat in with the Teddy Edwards group I was playing with in the 50s, you know, with Billy Higgins on drums, you know. And we're playing all this stuff, and Ornette's playing that funny little white horn that he had, you know. I didn't know it was plastic. He came in a couple of times. And pretty soon he grabbed Billy and they moved back to New York. I said, oh man, we lost a drummer, you know. But, you know, jazz changed forms to make money. Miles Davis changed form, got into the fusion stuff, and Herbie Hancock got into funky stuff, and Hampton Hawes and I got into the soul jazz stuff like that. Same as with Joe. Joe didn't want to play this on. He said, I'm not going to play rock and roll. I said, you don't have to play rock and roll, Joe. Just do your jazz on top of it. But he loved us because we're from the jazz world. Paul was too. He was a jazz drummer, see. That's Paul, I'm feeling all right, buddy. We just jammed this. But it helped to have Joe in the room singing it too, because you played to the singer, that kind of thing. So it turned out to be a big hit for him. You know?
Having played with all these legends along with the Monkees, behind the scenes as such as studio musicians with the Doors and the Monkees and all these great bands, did you and the other session players ever get a feeling of like, not that you wanted to be in the limelight, but was it ever strange for you? Did you ever want that?
Want to be stars?
Well, not to be stars more so, but did you ever find it strange, should I say, that everyone was, you guys, the geniuses, let's say, were kept in the background, or was it just the way it was?
No, it was a business.
Yeah.
It was a business. We were good at business. Yeah. Taking care of business. We were happy to do it.
Yeah.
Because it paid well. We didn't have to go anywhere but go home and try to sleep. You know, you live for the really nice days, like with Ray Charles and Mel Torme, Frank Sinatra, people like Rosemary Clooney, like that. Those days, like I tell people, they say, wow, it must have been fun all the time. I said, no, about 85% boring. You know, and did you like the music you played? I said, well, do you like your day job? You know, it was a job to us, you know, that we were paid a lot of money to make books for everybody. That you don't have a feeling of that you hate them. If you thought you hated the music, you couldn't play a hit, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, at the time you liked the music, you liked the groove, you liked working with others and stuff like that. You didn't think about, we joke about it. We say, hey, we're playing all this music, and they're out there, making $1 million just playing 3 chords, you know, that kind of thing. Hey, that was them, and this is us. We knew that we were the best in the world. To do what we had to do, record day and night, we had to be the very best. So, but at times we had to remind ourselves of that, you know, because it was like, oh God, I'm so tired. Please get me home. Can I turn this one down so I go to sleep? You know, that kind of thing.
Go to sleep with TikToks.
Yeah, I used to go sit in the can on the Phil Spector days just to fall asleep for 5 minutes. You know, just sit down on the can and nod out.
How many years did you not sleep for?
There's quite a few years. I'd say from about 63 on. Nobody got much sleep. You're sleeping maybe 5-6 hours at the most.
Yeah.
You snide. That adds up. After a while, you're drinking, instead of 3 cups of coffee, you're drinking 10 cups of coffee.
You told me that before. You said, yeah, in the 60s I didn't really sleep.
No, nobody slept. You know, I'm not the only one that did thousands of record days. Everybody else did too. You know, you had 350, 400 musicians, studio musicians, recording record dates at about 30 record studios in Hollywood, at least 30, maybe more. And then you had the film studios doing the movie soundtracks. You had Paramount, Warner Brothers, MGM, Fox, Universal, Desilu. It just, the list goes on. We're talking about 45 to 55 pieces. Big bands playing almost every day, recording almost every day. Today, if there's a big band of the big orchestra, 76 pieces. I did an airport and some of the major movies like that. There were 76 pieces. You're there in a room with them, and it's just a great feeling, because you're there with the finest musicians in the world playing that music, reading it, and I could get to invent learning too. So you have this constantly going on back then because the movie industry is just about out of business because of TV. TV killed the studio. So in the 60s, they got the hot idea to use the rock players, the soul rock players, especially the bass players like me. I'm the only one that they called because I'm the only one that could invent and could sight read at the same time. I could sight read fly specs, and I wasn't into drugs. I didn't smoke pot or anything. I don't drink. I didn't take pills, anything like that. So you're there to make money, and this is the first time in my life. Now, I grew up poor. I did not want my kids to grow up poor like I did. I did not want them to struggle like that. A good parent knows this and takes care of their children. I had 3 kids, and I wanted them to have a good life, a good start to begin with. So anyway, and they did. I had a nice lady that lived in with me. I paid her well to take care of the kids. I made a lot of money, but I paid a lot of that out in child care too, see. And I didn't get married. I married twice, and I got a divorce, and it was such a terrible thing that I didn't even date a man for years. I was perfectly happy going to the studio work and recording. That was a lot of money, and when you're doing studio work, you have a work ethic to do your very best, because you have to go home and look at yourself in the mirror. So
you're on the radio.
Yeah. Well, no, you don't have time to listen to the radio. You're trying to get to work.
You're back in studio.
If we didn't have the traffic that you got today, there's a ton of traffic. We had about 1/4 that many cars. So you can imagine. You could get around. You got parking place zip like that. You could run in the studio, then pack up. When you left the studio, you forgot the music because you got to do the same thing on the next record day or the next film call or something like that. So you drive a few blocks, park, get out with your bass. The Cardi's Country has got one of your amps there with turned on, set to the right setting for that studio, that kind of thing. So there's a lot. Thousands of people, copyists, music arrangers, producers, people that went out to hawk the records, to go to visit the disc jockeys and all. You had thousands of people in the business. It was a huge business out here in Hollywood. I still get emails of people say, "Oh, tell us what it was like in Hollywood," as if it's going to be like it was down south, where it's just a few people working. I said, you can't imagine what it was like. Thousands of people working in the industry. It was a huge industry out here. It was a huge business. But at one point, I did get stuck up. It's like, hey, I'm first call with everybody. Kiss my ass, So I had that. If an engineer didn't have a microphone plugged in, I said, hey, you need to plug in this thing here. Or out at Fox one time, I remember I got mad at the engineers out there. They had the microphone 6 feet away. I said, they're paying me a lot of money to come here to record for your movie. And I wasn't shy by that. I was shy when I was a kid, but I wasn't shy by that. I said, they're paying me a lot of money. They want to hear it on the movie. Move that thing in, or I get up and move it in, so it's right there where it should be. So I was a pain in the butt to a lot of people. But you know what? I get up in the studio and I got to know them in the booth. These older guys, they're wonderful older guys. So once we got that out of the way and they found out I was a nice person, I found out we got along great. They were so happy to see me on the scoring stage every time. MASH was cut out there at Fox. We did a ton of movies out there and everything. It was a wonderful place to work. Those engineers are responsible for, they talked about those racing pictures too, the cars. There's a couple racing pictures that were done out there, and they said that the sound of the engines that they had to mix just made them sick. You know, we talked about that. So yeah, they talked about it. And it's funny things, you know. Emil Richards, wild little guy. He's kind of a small guy. Had tons of percussion instruments, and he finally found the Echoplex. I use the Echoplex on bass too sometimes. You know, Tom Scott amplified the sax, so I had to help him with this amplifier, how to turn it on and set the Echoplex to the right tempo. You know, so if the quick track is here, you have to set the Echoplex there. Da 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 da. You know, that kind of thing. So you had to set it just right. You know. And so one time, we were all bored out of our gourd and tired and everything, and Abel starts laughing, and he had his Echoplex on his vibes. He went, oh. We started getting the giggles. You couldn't stop us, man. We were laughing. They had to take a break so we could stop laughing. It was funny, you know. It was just
some memory.
Silly little things like that, yeah. Silly things. But the guys were wonderful to work with, yeah. Okay.
Whenever somebody asks me, who have you ever spoken to who's got so much knowledge in music, my answer is always yourself. It's always Carol Kaye. So my question to you is the same. Who have you worked with and you just thought, right, I'm in the presence of someone that is so good at music, that really knows the craft, out of all the people that you work with? Is there anybody that springs to mind?
Well, yeah, we had our people that we loved too, you know. Barney Kessel, I met as a young kid. You know, my teacher brought me to Barney and said, hey, I'm teaching her. And he was very gracious. He was a big shot. I was nothing. He was very gracious. People, when you get close like that, the bigger they are, the more down home they are, the nicer they are. But you have to keep a certain brevity, you have to keep an edge away from the people that want to touch you like you're something, or, you know, to treat you like a star, because they have a fantasy sometimes, and you kind of have to stay away from those people. But it's just, Barney Kessel was so easy to be around. He was a wonderful person and a great player, you know. And here I am in the studio sitting next to him, waking him up for the take on a Sonny and Cher day. We were even then, you know. So, but I didn't. You don't feel like you have the respect is there, yeah, you know, because he did so much, but. You're inside the studios. You're all the same then, doing the work of the recordings. Yeah.
Some of the people that have read from your books have learned from your books.
They have, yeah. I'm very pleased about that. Yeah.
Jaco Pastorius.
Yes, he told me he learned from my books. I didn't know that at first. You know, here's what happened. I had my arm in a sling from when I got hurt. This is about 1977, and he said, "What's wrong with you?" I went out to a nightclub to hear some music, you know, and he was there, so we sat together and chatted. He was a very nice fellow, but you know, there was a spunk about him I just loved. I said, "Yeah, he's like I was when I was younger. Yeah, it's like kiss my butt, that kind of thing, you know." So yeah, he had a right to be, you know, because he was on a big hit record and stuff like this. He said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I think it's from playing the bass." He started talking about himself, how he has to run on stage because his arm and his neck were being horrendous pain from his bass too. So yeah, so I thought about that later on when he died. You know, I thought, you know, people don't know what it takes to play bass on stage. You do a lot of stuff to make your body comfortable, but you're suffering sometimes, you know. And I wonder how much pain that he had been in that he'd be in the drugs. I'm not making excuses for him, but I'm just saying that. But I liked him. I thought he was a real sharp guy, and I knew that he played great, you know. So we had a good talk, and he said that he used my books in the school where he went to. He used my books there. So
isn't that amazing?
That was very nice, yeah. I don't know how much he got out of them, you know, but it was nice he said that, yeah.
How many books have you written now? Is it how many bass books have you done?
It's about 30, including the latest jazz courses that I wrote. And I finally wrote them down because I knew jazz was back. So I started writing more jazz and everything. And I wrote the same jazz that we all played in the 50s. I knew the schools didn't teach that. There's a big gap from the rock days, and the schools are teaching a lot of nonsense scales. Those scales were not around in the 50s. You had the major scale and the minor scale, and you used them as traveling notes. You used jazz patterns, which were chordal notes and substitute chords and stuff like that. That's how we all played jazz. So I started writing my bass stuff because people were joking about bass solos that you can fall asleep by and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, that's nonsense. Ray Brown and all those guys, you didn't sleep during their solos. And the notes are there, why not learn them and play them? The teaching thing is funny. When I had my last surgery and I could play again, it took a while before I could get back. I couldn't even pat my foot at first. I trained myself to hate music. I had to hate music because when a musician is stuck and they can't play, there's a thing that goes on with your brain. I saw this with others too. If you're stuck in a body that can't work, you have to psych yourself to. I used to have fights with God all the time. That kind of thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have to express that anger. You have to get it out somehow. So so you listen to music and you make a different life than being a musician. That's what you have to do. So I did that. So getting back into music is like, oh my God, I got to relearn everything again. So I used that relearning to write the books, and it works. It all works. I had to relearn to get back into the jazz. It does work. And it was all the stuff from the 50s. Then all of a sudden, a lot of that stuff from the 50s came back to me when I got into it.
Do you have a particular favorite record that you play on that sticks out?
Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Feeling All Right is one of my favorites.
Right.
The Way We Were at Barbra Streisand, and just a whole bunch of that. There's some of the Beach Boys stuff I like too. Caroline No and Sloop John B. I like that. Help Me Rhonda, this. That's what Brian Wilson wrote. There's only one line I got in somewhere on the date with him. So some of those things are very good, and then some of the earlier records on guitar, I like those things. The Donka Shane, I played guitar on that, stuff like that. And it felt like jazz again, So yeah, it was that kind of stuff. And the movie work especially, because you're working for brilliant composers that write everything. One of the Planet of the Apes, I did about 3 of those Planet of the Apes scores, and boy, some of that music was out of sight. Talk about classical music, and you're reading that, and you keep going, I hope I make it, that kind of thing. Talk about terror, But most of the sight reading was pretty easy in the studios, So it was fun. It was fun to work for Benny Golson and Quincy Jones and just all those great composers, They were marvelous to work for. Just all the great music. Makes you feel like you're on top of the world to be able to play that music,
right?
And do a good job on it.
How did you feel when you found out that Paul McCartney's favourite bass player was yourself?
Oh, that was nice, wasn't it? Yeah, that was nice. Well, I knew he didn't know. The stars don't know what's happening in studios with other people, So he kept saying, well, Brian Wilson plays so great. And I said, well, okay, that's all right. he just didn't know. But it was nice to hear that. And people ask me, well, what do you think about Paul McCartney's book? Who's your favorite bass player? Of course, I'd say Ray Brown. And they want me to say Paul McCartney. Well, I did listen to him play. I said, yeah, he plays perfect. He plays the right notes, and he's got a good group. He fits that music perfect. See, I take it in the context of what they do, But being a jazz musician, I don't listen to anything but jazz. So a lot of people don't quite understand that, because it's their music. So they think I listen to it, but I don't, But when I did hear him play, I said, yeah, he's great, for what he did. He was beautiful, yeah.
That's what we were thinking about when we were driving here. We thought we need to ask Carol what she's listening to these days.
Yeah.
Jazz, of course. I'm a jazz musician. I'm going to listen to standards. I'm going to listen to the Broadway tunes. I don't listen to anything else. I had to record rock and roll, but that doesn't mean I listen to it. I don't listen to anything I ever recorded. Yeah, you record it, you forget about it. Some of those records I have listened to from time to time, but I'd rather listen to music I haven't done. I want to listen, because you keep growing anyway. You keep growing, and that's what you do. So that's my kind of music. This time I don't have a lot of years left, so I'm going to crowd in what I want to do. I don't have to go to work 16 hours a day in the studios anymore. I don't have little kids to take care of. So it's different when they're older.
Did you ever get into sounds and pedals, effects a lot, like outside the studio? Did you ever experiment with?
With pedals.
Pedals.
Yeah, I did. I tried the Echoplex. I had a little box that was made by Gibson that had the octave dividers, so you hit a note that comes down an octave. Yeah, I did that. In fact, I used it on Airport and one of the John Wayne movies and stuff like that. I used some pedals. You can't use the phaser on bass, but the fuzz tone I used on some dates. This is people say, oh, why do you have masking tape? I use the masking tape to hold the felt on. This is a piece of felt, doubled up felt. This is a simple way to mute. Without this, you got a lot of overtones and undertones. There's a lot, undertones too. This cuts down on the extra sounds that hurt your sound. So everybody in the studios uses mutes. Most of the bass recordings were done with the pick, back in the 60s. But if you're going to play with fingers, I tell people get a piece of medium foam and put under here. You don't want this kind of a sound. You want the note to ring. See, it rings. The minute I take my finger off, there's no sound. See, that's what this does. People say, oh, I mute with my hand. Yeah, well, you can. I did that with Mission Impossible because I wanted the extra snap. Extra snap. Without it, the notes are too long, see, so I did that. That's the only time I did that with the hand. But you can't play so forth. You can't play that mute with your hand. You have to play up here with a flat wrist. I see people doing this. I said, listen, the minute you pick up that wrist, you have no power. This is the power, and the power's in the wrist, as if you had a bolt through the wrist here, that kind of thing. So there's a real art to playing with the pick, and you play with the beat. Very natural. And the attack of the pick is about 3 times the attack of the fingers. I'm not saying fingers is wrong, but the attack of the pick worked back then. So you don't have to use the pick today, but if you're gonna pick, do it right, and then it's you get the right sound, you get the right attack, you get the evenness, so the engineer doesn't have to ride your sound with EQ. They never EQ'd me in the studios, except for some of the Motown stuff, like. There's too much attack, so Armin Steiner would put a little bit of compression on it. He loved it. He said, Carol, I love your sound. I said, why are you putting compression on it then? He said, to match the Detroit sound. I said, oh, well, that makes sense, because they wanted to keep it sounding like it was cut back there in Detroit. That's your image thing, It's funny, too, because a lot of the writers sued Motown in the late 60s, so I'm wondering why that was, because evidently we were doing dates out here that had something to do with them, and they taught Motown. Anyways, I mean, it was kind of murky, you know, the Motown story is.
Carol, this has been absolutely fascinating. Just sitting listening to you.
Amazing.
We really appreciate you.
stories.
A lot of stuff, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for giving your time.
Yeah, it's beautiful that we could do this.
The queen of bass, the person who actually early on, and I'm still working on this bass line, it goes like this. See, I'm still working on it.
Bass cat.
I don't know if this will help.
Oh yeah, exactly.
This is from Carol Kaye.
Look at that. Wow.
From the hand of the mother herself.
It does. It's magic.
Way better. Woo! Unbelievable. Yeah?
Yeah, man.
Oh, treasure.
Yeah.
Carol, you are a big inspiration to me, one of my favorite bass players of all time, and I just want to say thank you for all the notes that you've left on the table for us to pick up. And that's it. I love you.